All right. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast Interview, where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and top badasses that they're dominating their space. And today, guys, we got another amazing, special, epic guest here on the podcast. Somebody I'm really, really excited to have on the podcast. And I think the timing couldn't be more perfect. So our guest today is a short sale expert. This is somebody that's been in the industry for a long time, pre-great financial crisis, that's seen all these different markets, which we'll get into her backstory and all of that and how she got into this. But she's made an insane, amazing career for herself in real estate business and opportunities for her family and so forth through focusing on the niche of short sales. So really stoked and honored to have Heather Keller on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Josh. I'm so excited to be here. Very excited to talk to everyone about short sales and my journey. Hopefully it'll be inspiring to anyone out there that's listening. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, because it's one of these things that, when we think of short sales or we think of foreclosures, REO, our minds might go back to the last housing crash that we saw. But what I think a lot of people don't realize, and what you've taken, like what you've niched down on, is a niche that is always there. We might see more of them if we enter another hardcore recession, but people are always experiencing hardships. So this is a niche that always exists, always is there, people that you can always serve. And we'll talk about this as we get deeper in the podcast, but you've really kind of created this blue ocean for yourself where you don't have competition. You can kind of set your schedule and, but before we get into all of that, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So, before this whole real estate thing started what did you do before and what led you into real estate itself?
Yeah, I think everyone has a unique story, but so I grew up in Michigan, Southwest Lower Michigan. I grew up on Lake Michigan, went to the beach every single day. I wanted something more for myself. So after college, I was like, I'm going to go and get my MBA and my law degree. So I started that. But man, schooling, it's a lot of money. And so I just decided one morning, I'm going to move to Chicagoland. And I knew no one. I was 22, 23 years old. So I moved to the city. I got a job in mortgages. This was 2006. Had no idea really what a mortgage was. And I did really well. It was a lot of cold calling and stuff. I was a top producer. And we all know what happened in 07, 08, the mortgage industry tanked. And so during that time, I met my husband, my now husband, and we kept hearing the term short sales. And so we decided, okay, we're going to leave our mortgage career and start a company around short sales. And so back in the day, the banks had no idea how to handle the influx of everything that was going on. Our first short sales with Countrywide. Do you remember Countrywide?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And so it took them like 6 months just to contact us. Obviously, things have changed a lot since 2006. But yeah, we left our jobs then, started this business around short sales. We were very determined, very consistent. We did not make money for that first year. And so we taught ourselves how to do these short sales. We taught ourselves how to deal with the banks, all of that, do the marketing, everything. It was a crazy time because, when you're not making any money and you're determined to get this business done, eventually our goal was to have the best of both worlds, get married, have kids. And when you talked about schedules and all that, I have a super flexible schedule. So fast forward, my husband and I are no longer doing this together. He came to me in 2014 and he said, hey, Heather, I want to take my hobby. It was opening sports cards for a business. I don't know if you are aware of any of that, to a full-blown business. And I was like, okay, it was like 2 weeks after we had our youngest son. And the thing is our short sale business was able to support him in his next chapter of what he wanted to do. And I did that. And so now his business is thriving here and so is short sales, despite what everyone thinks. And here we are. So yeah, it's been a long journey for us, but I'm still doing essentially the same thing every day, every week, every month. With my business. And I absolutely love helping families through this situation.
It's so amazing. And well, just one quick, so when you first started off in this, because you didn't mention anything about like obtaining a real estate license.
Yeah.
Did you start off as like a real estate short sale or like a negotiator, or, was it, a realtor that was just niching down with short sales?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. So when we started, I was not licensed in real estate. Like we had founded this company, we are incorporated, and we were buying these short sales. So back in 2006, 7, 8, I about those 3 years, the bank was not requiring these properties to be listed, or at least that's how it was in Chicagoland. So we were just submitting kind of like a for sale by owner agreement, and we were getting these properties approved. Our company would buy them out, fix them up, or whatever. That got very draining. And I was like, hey, I just want to get my real estate license and list these properties. Typically, the banks pay 6%, depending. So I would always give 3.5 to my side, 2.5 to the buy side. And so I went and got licensed in 2009. And so I've been licensed since 2009. Now I just list the property and my team negotiates everything. So that's kind of how we started, but I did not have my license at first. Now, if you want to list and handle short sales, you're going to have to get your license because the banks will require that.
Yeah. And what I love about this is, okay, so number one, you're sitting there talking about how much you love doing this, and the like most in our industry, when you hear short sell, people think of pain. They think of like a non-fun process. They think of, like they have so many negative narratives, even those that have never done it. It's just taking on this negative narrative, overall. And also, in addition to that, okay, you've built this, multiple 6-figure year-over-year income for yourself with a flexible schedule that allows you to enjoy your family and your kids and all of this. But we were just kind of unwinding the biggest real estate boom in recorded history. So a lot of people are thinking, oh, short sales don't exist. Well, like, you've been able to continue this niche, and it's been very lucrative throughout booms, busts, and everything in between.
Yeah. So I had my biggest year in 2020, and I always like to bring a ton of different stories in. So if you don't mind, like, I like to
love it.
story here and there, but my biggest month was August of 2020. And so I had taken on this deal. My client had bought it from Governor Pritzker. He's the governor here in the state of Illinois. And he lost his job on the Board of Trade. And unfortunately, there was a lot of deferred maintenance, and we ended up closing that deal. So here's a fun fact, Josh. I don't use for sale signs in front of our properties. We typically just do a lot of online marketing. I try to keep it private for them. I was able to find the buyer for this particular deal, and the bank didn't cut the commission. And so it was a 6% deal, and it ended up closing at 1.5 million. And so I did have other deals closing that month. So it was like well over 6 figures that I made in August. And this was right during the pandemic. And a lot of people are like, how are you making any money, during what's going on right now? Here's what happened. When the pandemic hit, they put all these moratoriums and forbearances in place. It did not help. And so a lot of people just weren't making their payments. Maybe some of them were able to get a loan mod. But what people forget to take into consideration is, yeah, they have that principal and balance. So let's say it's 150. Then they haven't made a mortgage payment in 2 years. So where does all of that money go? It just doesn't wipe away. It gets put on the loan somehow. And so a lot of times what we're seeing right now, Josh, is we're ordering these payoffs, and they're coming in higher than what the property is worth. So it kind of just depends when they stopped making the payments, if they're in a state that's judicial or non-judicial. But the reality is, and we pull these numbers every single week on Wednesday. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to all the data. The numbers are going up. So there's tons and tons of families across the United States that are behind on their mortgage, but they may still have that equity because of the way the market is right now. I don't know how it is in where you're located, but the last 2 deals I closed last week, the family hadn't made a mortgage payment in 10 years. The other one was about a year and a half. And they ended up walking, the year and a half one ended up walking away with about 50,000. Just because of the way the market is. But that's still a distressed situation. So I use the word distressed a lot more right now versus short sale, because there's always something else going on. Tax liens, HOA. So when people say there's no short sales or distressed situations, that is false. They've always been around, like you said. They will always be around. I kind of this analogy in place. So you go and you buy, you see this car and you really, really want it. You don't see it anywhere. So let's just say it's a white Ford Focus, okay? And you go and buy that car, you're in that car every single day, right? And so then you start seeing that car all the time because you're in it every day. It's the same thing with distress situations. I have the relationships, I've had the marketing for so long that people just come to me. So anyone can take advantage of that.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And at the end of the day, it boils down, okay, it's just personal hardships that people go through, and when we look at inflation, you look at all of these things going on, we're in an era now. I know the market appears to be strong right now, and on paper, it is, but it's like, okay, biggest debt bubble of all time. When you look at, what's going on with the consumer from, the savings rate versus debt rate, it's complete inverse, graphs. So they exist. My prediction is they'll exist in a higher magnitude. One of my regrets during the great financial crisis is I focused so much on REO. And it was good. It was great. Don't get me wrong. But we did short sales as well. But my regret was not focusing more on short sales, because what people don't, a lot of people don't know or understand or realize that, short sales are 100% in our control, or, whether you want to call them short sales, distress, whatever term we want to use there. But, okay, I was at the mercy of the banks giving me these listing assignments. Well, with short sales, so okay, an example, Fannie Mae Direct, at one point they were my biggest client. I'm getting like 90 listings a month from them. Well, then all of a sudden we come in and they tell us, well, we made a decision that we need to share the wealth, so we're going to cap. So then instead of loading up just some agents, we're going to spread it now and cap everybody at 30. Okay, well, overnight, like my business got cut down by, a massive, because I might have been carrying with 90 new assignments, that might have been, 300 in the pipeline. Well, now I'm going to only being able to have 30 in the total pipeline between listed and unlisted. So, okay, like I wasn't fully control my own fate, where short sales, you can grow this and scale this as big as you want to scale it.
Yeah, so that's kind of another fun fact. And I don't think I mentioned this. If I did, I'm sorry, but I've never once marketed to buyers or traditional sales. I've solely focused on the distress situations. And from that, these families, you can control it, Josh. That's why my passion lies with helping these homeowners in the pre-foreclosure status versus the REOs, because you can scale the business. There's so much you can do, but I absolutely just have taken the short sales and just kind of ran with it. So we have a lot of clients now that did a short sale with us 10 years ago. And so I've never marketed to buyers or traditional sales, but if you do it the right way, the short sale niche, it will lead to so much more business down the road. And so I just had a client call me that said, they came off of one of my marketing pieces 10 years ago. She was the one that got one of those well, maybe not quite 10 years, but she got the half a short sale. I'm sure you remember those. They were getting $10,000.
Yep.
Anyways, and then they came and bought with me. Now they want to sell that house and move to a retirement community. So I certainly don't keep in touch with everyone. I did have a seller on the run for murder once. We can tell that story if we have time. But I've seen everything. But yeah, my passion lies with truly helping the homeowner navigate through the foreclosure process, because it's very rewarding.
Yep. So then from there, how much competition do you have? How many times are you going against 2 or 3 other listing agents?
So that's a good question. I would feel like there's literally no competition. Yep. I know there's other people in Chicagoland or in other areas of the country where I have partners that claim they do short sales. Look, if you're a homeowner out there struggling, make sure you ask certain questions. You want to make sure you're getting into a situation with a listing agent who understands. But yeah, there's really no competition, Josh. And, real estate is a people business. So most of my business comes from the relationships I've built with attorneys. And so when an attorney says, hey, you got to go use Heather and her team, 100% of the time, they're going to do that. So when I go to a listing appointment, I know that the paperwork's going to get signed and everything right then and there. And so I don't have any competition. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. No, I love that. And the reason because we had some kind of side conversations before we hit the record button. So, I kind of already knew the answer before asking the question, but I wanted to, I'm really just trying to paint the picture as for everybody that's watching and listening to this as why they may want to focus on short sales, because especially in the market that run with this low inventory, it's so competitive. It's so competitive trying to get listings. Then when you have buyers, multi offers, and plus with lower transaction volume, it's a very competitive landscape right now. So we're talking about a niche that anybody can jump into that's in our industry and have essentially zero competition where there is big demand and they're out there helping people go out there and solve a big current issue problem that they're having.
Yeah, I mean, I get this question all the time. What do you predict the future? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't predict the future. Do I think it's going to be like it was in 08 or 09? No. But according to all of my attorneys I have relationships with across the country, there's a lot of families in Chapter 13s, and something's got to give. The market's not going to be able to continue like this. And so any real estate agent out there, you have to adjust with the way the market's going. It's definitely going to shift. I'm seeing a little bit of it here. So continue to do what you're doing. But when the market does shift, you could have this niche of short sales. And so I always say, hey, if you're an agent out there that's tired of dealing with buyers, wants more listing and no competition, or the big one for me was a super flexible schedule. And so what I mean by that is, I work during my kids' schedule. They go to school from 7:45 to 3. When someone is in a distressed situation, they absolutely will work around your schedule because they're desperate, they're scared. And weekends, if I take a weekend appointment, Josh, it's first thing Saturday morning. Sundays are church family time for me. And so that's why I love the niche of short sales, because I can still make six figures, be the mom and wife that I want to be, and not be so insanely overwhelmed. But I've been very good over the years. And this is where your business probably comes in to help people delegate and automate things, because you can't do everything yourself,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love, and when you have, a niche that you have little to no competition, you're the expert in, right? Like, again, you're in demand, so there's so many benefits to that, versus, okay, if I'm trying to go out there and get buyers right now and I'm unavailable, okay, they can call 50,000 other agents in my marketplace, because there's literally 50,000 agents in my marketplace,
That is very, very true. Yep.
So now let's get into the weeds a little bit. So when it comes to short sales, all right, so I did a lot of them during the great financial crisis, but it hasn't been a big part of my business. Like, I mean, a couple a year that squeak in here, but it's like we're not out there actively marketing like we were at one time. It's just past clients and they're tough bind, we're not. But with that, there's a lot that's changed. I know we're talking about this a little off air too, but like back then, as an example, there was a period of time where there was a tax exemption where essentially anybody that short sold wouldn't be subject to any taxes. And so what are some things, or how the landscapes maybe change, or how it is now today, that is really important if people are going to get into this arena? Because like most brokers tell their agents, don't do it, it's a pain in the butt, don't do it, don't get involved. And they're probably saying a lot of that because they're scared about liability, because their agents don't know how to go out there and protect themselves, protect their clients. Like what are some really important things to make sure that you have awareness of, so you know what you're doing?
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So I have an indemnity agreement that my whole entire team can take advantage of. Basically, it's just stating there's no guarantees, and you don't want to guarantee anything up front. In the end, it's always going to be up to the short sale lender. The other thing, Josh, is the relocation. I absolutely love to negotiate. The art of negotiating for me is just something is my strength inside of the short sale, but we cannot negotiate that relocation assistance. So they either qualify or they don't. We can talk about, the ways that they go about qualifications and stuff. But another thing is we're real estate agents. We are not attorneys. So, when that exemption existed, did it change much after it was gone? I would say no, not really. A seller does not want to go to foreclosure. So if they go to foreclosure, then they could possibly be sued afterwards. Inside of the short sale, when we negotiate that, we will get what is called an approval letter. Remember those?
Yep.
And that approval letter will state, hey, the deficiency is waived. So the bank is not going to come sue them for that difference. So, let's say it's 50,000 or they owe 250 and we sold it for 200. So they're not going to come sue them for that 50,000. But what happens with that 50,000? Most of the time, the sellers will receive a 1099. And so a lot of people get, worked up about that, nervous. It's still going to be 1,000 times better than going to full-blown foreclosure. That is where I say, hey, I am not a tax accountant, but please take it to a tax accountant that understands the ins and outs of this 1099, because I know there are certain ways around it and stuff. But more than likely they're going to get that 1099, but they're not going to be sued because we have that deficiency judgment waiver inside of the approval letter.
All right. So, a lot that are watching and listening to this may, have no experience with short sales, right? So let's just assume, and there's going to be, a lot that maybe do as well, but let's just assume for, this question here or this conversation that, somebody's completely green to this. Then from there, okay, if somebody's asking me, well, why should I short sell versus foreclose? Why don't I just go through the foreclosure?
Okay, so I always have these benefits. And so when I'm sitting down with a seller, the benefit of a short sale is it would give them some more time. So what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people, and this is what my company is trying to do across the country, is to spread awareness to these families. Do not just put their situation underneath the rug. Come to us sooner rather than later, because a lot of people wait and they have an auction date coming up. And then there's like someone just called me the other day and said they had an auction date this upcoming Monday. And I'm like, there's nothing that we can do. And so I'm sorry, can you say your question again? I literally sometimes just think
yeah, just like so if we're talking to somebody about their options with short, homeowner, being able to explain that, okay, why short sale is more beneficial versus a foreclosure.
Yeah, so the benefits of a short sale is they could get some more time in the property. And so I was explaining that situation. And so one of the examples, so if you're new or you're looking to get into this, we had a client that came to us, we got an offer, we submitted everything, and my team was able to get that auction date postponed. And so if we hadn't, then they would have been, kicked out of the property. That is how the state of Illinois works, but every state is a little bit different. So it could give them more time. The property is going to be sold as is. So a lot of people don't want to call us because they're like, oh my gosh, I have all this deferred maintenance, I have mold or whatever. It is an as is property. And so they're not going to have to fix anything. The other big thing is it should not cost the sellers anything to do this short sale. And so I always say, hey, if there's agents out there that have these brokerages that charge these listing fees, see if that your managing broker would waive that. I was at a brokerage many years ago that said they weren't going to waive that. And I ended up paying like $10,000 worth of listing fees, because me personally, I could not go to my seller and say, hey, this is going to cost you money. So it does not cost them any money. They could potentially get relocation assistance. So that is another big one. Again, that's not guaranteed. Depends on FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. And then they are going to avoid that foreclosure on their credit report, which is the biggest thing. You definitely don't want to have that on there. And the deficiency would be waived, which is stated inside of the approval letter. Now, if they go to full-blown foreclosure, then they're always going to have to say, yes, I foreclosed on. Whenever they're filling out different applications, it's going to be very difficult to rent and do all of that. So that another great thing about my team and what we do is we try to provide everything in-house. And so we do help find rentals for them. And so that's just a huge plus that they can just do everything inside of our community. So, but yeah, those would be the benefits, the most benefits for the short sale.
Yeah, because aren't there, I don't know if this is still the case, but back in the day, I was like, okay, that foreclosure, I mean, that can impact employment.
Yeah.
There's
buy a car, whatever it may be. It's just not the ideal situation. So we do, most experts will argue to do the short sale or sell versus drastic measures like going to foreclosure. And so, some people can short sale now, some people have that equity. So if you aren't sure, then you want to talk to a professional that understands and that can determine that for you.
Okay. So then, yeah. And then two, and again, I'm trying to go off memory because it's been, a long time for me personally. So then, it's like, okay, our short sale clients, they didn't take quite as much of a credit hit. They don't have the foreclosure word on there.
Correct.
But so it was like, okay, like we could turn around a short sale situation, get them requalified, maybe go out there and buy in a couple years,
Mhm.
where a foreclosure I don't know what the rules are with that, or if that's changed, but something like 5 or 7 years or whatever it is, it's the length of time is much longer to go out
It's
there and rebuild.
longer. Correct. And so, one of the things we always talk about with our clients up front is like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Someone may come to us, say in like February, and they're like, we just want our kids to finish out school here. And so, that's only a 3 or 4 month time frame. More than likely, we can make that happen. And so, I've dealt with every single bank over the years, and we are very nicey to them, only to try to get our way, for the sellers, because we want them to be able to move on to the next chapter of their lives. Let us help them find a rental. But the short sale and selling is going to be a better option, but they cannot come to us, like the guy I just said that they had an auction date on Monday and he's already filed for a bankruptcy. And so I don't know, I'm sure you know this, Josh, but a bankruptcy can be a way to stop that auction. We have plenty of bankruptcy attorneys on our team that can help them. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but I do know how it works hand in hand when we go to sell the property. But it does temporarily stop that date if they qualify, and they can do that.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so a short sale, there's nothing usually short about it. Right. The short is because of the short loan payoff, right? What is your average length of time on your short sale from, okay, get that first contract, through negotiations, through, successfully closing?
Yeah, so I always make this joke. And people probably think I'm just crazy, but I'm like, look, short sale doesn't mean short time frame. It should really be called a long sale. But short sale, just like you said, it means the bank is being shorted in the amount that's owed. And so the banks, they do want to help these homeowners and do the short sale, because it does cost them, Josh, a lot of money to foreclose. So like right now, we're not seeing a ton of REOs because they do want to either help the homeowner or have them sell it. So there's, just to let you know about that. But yeah, there's not a ton. I'm not seeing a ton of REOs right now. Tell me your question again.
Just average length of time,
Yeah,
it's like
okay.
6 months, 4 months.
So I would say average is like 3 to 6. But if you're getting, say, a Fannie Mae deal, they are by far the easiest, if easy and short sale go hand in hand, system to follow. And so they have HomePath for shortsales.com. And so you're submitting everything to the bank, and then you're going to initiate it through HomePath. And so once you get an offer with a Fannie Mae deal, I would say it's probably start to finish 6 to 8 weeks, let's just say. It's a very, very good system. Now, if you have an FHA or a Freddie Mac, they make you go through the waterfall process. So the waterfall process just means you have to go through a loan mod, whether you want to keep the property or not. So it is a very lengthy process. I would say FHA is probably going to be closer to like the 6-month mark.
Okay. So then, so you mentioned, okay, when we're going out, like, let's talk about how we go out there and get short sales.
Mhm.
I mean, you mentioned attorneys. There's a lot of different ways. There's lists that you can buy. But what are some top ways? Because this isn't just something that now you are doing. Now you are mentoring people all over doing this. So you're probably seeing a lot of different strategies that are working for other people in different markets and whatnot.
Yeah, so I am coaching agents across the country. The idea is for them to come on and mirror what I have done there. And so when I came on board back in 2007, I was not about cold calling or door knocking. I know a lot of people have had huge success with that, and some people inside of my network are. But I created this letter, and it was targeted specifically for families that have an auction on their home. And so I call it the auction date lead letter. And so that letter gets sent out to families every single Monday that have an auction date on their home. we just implemented not too long ago, another letter. It's called the equity letter. And so that letter still talks about short sales, but with the way the market is, we're trying to encourage homeowners, hey, you have that equity, sell it, pull it out, make that money before it goes to foreclosure. And so we have those 2 letters. They go out once a week. Any guesses on how long I've been sending out that letter every single week? Just curious.
I mean, I don't know as far as this is our first, my first hearing
Yeah.
about it, but for a long time.
Yeah, so 12 years.
Yeah.
It's our number 2 lead source, that letter. And so, I say that because consistency is key when it comes to marketing to these distressed homeowners. And so I'm not kidding. That letter goes out every single week for the last 12 years. I think we've taken a little bit of time off around the holidays. But that's my number 2 lead source. My number 1 is the relationships with attorneys. And so I wrote a book back in 2006. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale. So I'll show you the front cover. This is what it looks like.
Okay. Yep. Awesome.
Anyway, so I wrote that book. It's a general overview of how the short sale process works. So it's a really great resource for families that are struggling, but also attorneys. And so that's how I've built my relationships with attorneys. I've gone into their offices and I say, hey, I have this book. You have the same type of clientele that I do. Let's work together. Let me show you how I can add value to your firm, which is, hey, you've done this bankruptcy or you've gone through foreclosure defense. Why don't you sell now? Because you don't want it to go to foreclosure. I have this expert, Heather, or, wherever you're at in the country, I'm sure we have a partner there. And then the other added value for them is they could add some revenue to their firm. And so whether some states don't work with attorneys, I don't know. I think Arizona does not, right? Do you have a closing?
No, just title state, not attorney state.
So it's done. We have to just word it a little bit different on the statement, but really this book is not only helping the homeowners, but the attorneys in our surrounding area. So I will show them meaning my partners, how to take this book and go and talk to attorneys, how to get in with the bar associations. Like I said earlier, real estate is a people business. So this is the number 1 lead source for me. Now, back when I started, I was scared to death to even just make a phone call to the bank. But my husband was very, very good with people. And so he just continued to encourage me. And that's what the community is about. And what I've built for these agents is, hey, we're there to encourage you to step outside your comfort zone. I would say the attorneys tend to not think outside of the box, and it's our job to show them. But yeah, it's been really great to build those relationships. And I've been working with my attorneys now for well over 10 years. So the book and the attorneys, and then our direct mail marketing is primarily what we're doing right now. Of course, past clients too.
Yep, love it. So then, okay, so you mentioned the auction date letter. So then, and every state's different, but like here in Arizona, they've got to be 90 days behind in payments before they can set the auction date. Then the auction date set, which has got to be at least another 90 days. So it's a 6-month, process.
Right.
But then if I wait till the auction date set, okay, they're already 6 or 3 months in default. So if you're waiting to that point, like what I guess where I'm going with this question is, at what point, like how soon before that auction, like how much time is enough time to give you the time you need to do to get the everything done?
Yeah, so that's good. We have a system that my team can go in and pull the data anywhere in the United States. And so I train them to pull the data with at least 2 weeks out. So what's today? May 5th. So what's 2 weeks from now? May 19th. So if they were sending their letters out today, I would say send them out to anyone that has an auction date of May 19th or past that date. And so does that give us enough time? Not really, but you may get a call from one of them and then you can say, oh, have you considered a bankruptcy? Have you talked to someone? A lot of times they say, yeah, I've been looking into the option of a bankruptcy, but I just don't know where to turn. They don't want to get taken advantage of. And so that's where I would then refer them out to my bankruptcy attorney in hopes that maybe they can file, which again, it does temporarily stop that date. So we usually go about 2 weeks out. Now, every state's a little bit different. Here in Illinois, Josh, it goes through the courts. And so once that auction date takes place, we cannot do anything after that. They'll go to the court, they'll confirm the sale, they'll start the process of kicking the seller out. Now, now, for example, in Michigan, so we have some partners in Michigan, their redemption period is after the auction. I think yours is too. Is it after the auction?
This sounds really bad, but I don't know. I mean, I've been to the auction steps and bidding on properties, and you acquire title right then and there.
So just to give you an example, Michigan does not have to go through the courts. And so their redemption period takes place after that auction. So my partners in Michigan will just add a little extra note inside of their letter. Hey, did you know, what is a redemption period? Did you know that you could sell after that? So like, let's just say their auction is May 10th. If ours is May 10th, that's it. In Michigan, and I know other states are like this, if they call and they have that auction May 10th, they could still close after that because of the redemption period. So we do have attorneys all over the country that can kind of help guide you, but it's really important to understand how your state processes foreclosure.
Yeah. So then, are you, I mean, outside of the attorney partners, but when it comes to, these letters, is it always waiting for the auction date? Are you doing anything, like there's certain lists I can go out there and buy that will be like, okay, like a 30-day notice of default list or the 60-day notice of default list. So I can, maybe start communicating with them 60 days, 90 days, before the actual auction date is even set.
Yeah, so I've had the best luck with the auction date leads. It is a very tricky situation, but I also have another letter. So I pretty much have a letter or postcard for every stage of the foreclosure process. But the other letter is called the pre-foreclosure letter. And so once that notice of default hits or lis pendens, that's what is filed for our state, then you can have access to that information and send out that letter. The other thing that I have in place is an email smart campaign. That's what I use for a perfect storm.
Yeah, awesome.
So we have the pre-foreclosure campaign. And so I've created all of these emails. I've done all of these YouTube videos to help educate these homeowners. And so my team can then go in and plug in the email smart campaign for the pre-foreclosure. And so that campaign usually runs about 11 months because, when someone has that notice of default or lis pendens, the process can take a little bit. And then there's another campaign that we run inside of Perfect Storm that's auction date. So if they have an auction date, that one runs for about 3 months. But I wrote all of the emails, so my team doesn't have to do any of that. They just basically paste it into their CRM. Hopefully it's Perfect Storm because it's the easiest system ever. And then they just set it and kind of forget about it and then just respond, as they get. So people are seeing us, whether it's through social media, whether it's through the email smart campaigns or the letters. It's funny because a lot of my attorneys say, oh yeah, I mentioned that they should call you. And they're like, oh yeah, I got one of her letters already, or I saw her, video on social media or something. So it does work. You just have to be consistent and do all of it.
So what have you learned over the years as far as, I mean, because it's as a homeowner going through that, and I've, knock on wood, haven't personally had to go through, that situation. But I can only imagine how stressful and hard and embarrassing and, like it's a situation that probably nobody sees themselves being in, you know what I mean? Like, so what have you learned as far as with messaging? So when you're sending, whether it be letters or these drips in that communication, I guess to be effective in that situation, to get people to respond, even though they're, again, because they're, I mean, like I haven't been in that situation, but I've been in insane business situations where you're under tremendous stress. And it's like, it's hard to even think clearly and be proactive. It's almost like you kind of just overwhelmed, shut down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You definitely get some calls or some emails that people get very angry. But you can't take it personal. They're in a very tough situation. And so I really try to go about the marketing and those relationships and everything with just being myself and providing as much knowledge as I can. So that way they can make that best informed decision for their families. And so when they call me, the goal really is always to keep them in their house. Unfortunately, that does not happen that often. And so we'll walk them through all of those options. And a majority of the people are like, wow, thank you. I didn't know that. And so I just feel like if you're patience is key. Having that empathy to really deal with their situations. I mean, I sit at these kitchen tables every single week and they're crying because of whatever situation it may have been. And so if you don't have the patience, if you don't have the empathy, it's probably not the niche for you, but you really just have to go about it that way. It's more about them and their future versus just taking on another deal or a commission. And we say that, we tell them, hey, we really truly want to help you and hold your hand so you can get to the next chapter of your life. There's a lot. I don't think I've ever seen one situation that's ever been the same, Josh. But yeah, patience is key. Got to have a lot of patience.
Yep. Yeah. So then, yeah, because it used to always blow my mind as to, I'm like, okay, like this doesn't cost them anything. Like, why aren't they reaching out? Like I'm offering to, now the mistake that I made is as soon as the market corrected, I dropped this as a niche and I pivoted. I should have kept it as a leg of my business. And I need to bring it back as a leg of my business. So I need to go, hire you as my coach so I can bring that back. And, because it's a lot of revenue that I've missed out on in my real estate business, but it would blow my mind of like, well, why aren't they reaching out? Because it doesn't cost them anything. We can help them see if they can do a loan mod. We can, short sell. I mean, worst case, they're going to go through the same process if they don't reach out for the help, and for close. But it's like, this is free help. But then, part of my mind was always thinking of like, maybe this just sounds like too good to be true, or maybe because what I don't see is, from their end is how many people are trying to take advantage of them in their situation and trying to, make a quick buck off of their, their hardship.
Yeah, that's a sad thing is I think, when they're in this situation, it's such a daunting, frightening, they don't know what to do. They don't want to turn to the someone for wrong advice. And so they just wait and they think it's just going to go away and it doesn't. And then they have this auction or whatever. And so, quick story behind that. And I say this because no matter what market we're in, someone is always there trying to take advantage of these families, but especially in a shifting market. So someone had called me off of those letters we were just talking about, Josh, and they said, hey, Heather, I don't know why I'm getting this letter. Thank you for sending it, but what's going on? We don't own the property anymore. And I was like, let me do some research. I did some due diligence. The bank foreclosed on that property in March of 2020. And, but the bank actually reversed the foreclosure because of, we all know what happened in March of 2020, moratoriums, forbearances. But they were not aware of what was going on. Someone came knocking on their door and said, hey, we will allow you to stay in your house. So those were the exact words this family wanted to hear. They didn't want to move if you pay us rent. And so they were paying rent to these people. In reality, they still own the house. And so you just have to be so careful who you're talking to. You got to do your research. I always tell people like, Google's your friend. Go ahead and Google me. There's tons of information. But yeah, they're getting taken advantage of. I just feel like they're going through such a hard time that they don't want to face it. And then once they finally face it, they're crying, they're upset. I mean, I always ask people like, what made you open my letter? And the one lady recently said, oh, I've had it for like 2 months and I just kept it there. I just kept all of your letters there. And then one day I was like, I'm just going to open it. And it just felt really, heartfelt and warm. And that's why I called you. I think a lot of people just don't know where to turn. And so hopefully Blueprint is changing that, where it's like, hey, we're a safe place to come and speak to us about your situation.
So then, yeah. And yeah, it's my first short sale, which was early 2007. And they actually it was off of an expired letter. And that's what then kind of opened up that niche for me as I started having, just from an expired letter, these people reaching out to me. Well, the reason that their homes were expiring was because they couldn't get the amount they needed for their home. But my first one was a total accident. Like I thought, okay, well, how much do you own your home? Okay, give me the payoff so I can see that. Okay, we're good to go. we're getting ready to close on their house. Title company comes to me and they're like, well, how are they going to pay off the second mortgage? I'm like, what are you talking about? They told me they didn't have a second mortgage. They just had the one. Well, come to find out, they took out a line of credit against their house. They didn't realize that that was a lien against the house. They didn't inform me. So then, but we're like, hey, what do we do here? So we had to then negotiate a short payoff and figure that out. And so I stumbled across the first one on accident, but letters, they work, they're so
They do.
beneficial.
They
Now,
really do work.
are you just sending the one, like, is it just that letter that one time at that point in time, or is it, do you have even if it's the same letter, certain follow-ups?
Yeah, so it's the same letter. We try to make, I'm really a believer in a simple system. And so it's the same letter. So if they still have that auction and it's not listed, then the letter will just continue to go out every single week. And so, we do different things to try to get them to open the letter and stuff. And like I said, that's always been our number 2 lead source. I analyze my business at the end of each month and at the end of the year. And so that's been the same for the last 12 years.
Yep. And when you're approaching attorneys, because this is an assumption, maybe I'm wrong here, but it's not going to attorneys just saying, hey, give me your short sale business. You're going there, maybe educating them, offering them a value, showing them how, you can team up and partner, bring value for their clients. Like how do you open that door for those relationships?
Well, maybe my clients, so I always ask, have you filed for a bankruptcy? And if they say yes, then I ask who it was. And then that's how I kind of follow up with these attorneys. And so I will say, hey, can I stop by? I have this book. I think it would be beneficial to your clients. And that's the book that I told you about. I mostly target bankruptcy and foreclosure defense. And so I feel like the bankruptcy attorneys, they just do the bankruptcy and they don't know how to really add more business to their firms. And so I try to target small and mid-sized firms. I go to a lot of different luncheons for the bar associations. And I also do a lot of CLE credits for attorneys now too. So they've asked me to come on. I do a lot of speaking. I don't know if you're familiar with the Minister of Justice, but I spoke to their attorneys yesterday. But anyways, I try to show these attorneys, look, we have the same type of clientele. This is how you're going to be able to add value to your firm. And that value is, let's have you file, if they're filing the bankruptcy and they have to sell the house, let's just do it all inside of this firm. There's no reason to go to this firm, to this agent. And the main reason for that, Josh, is because if they're going through a bankruptcy, I'm going to have to get an attorney consent letter to be able to speak to the bank. So it's easier to do it all inside of this firm. But there's a lot of bankruptcy attorneys that don't know how to get a deal closed if you're an attorney state. If you're not, there's certain verbiage that you can use to put on the statement to try to get them paid. But for example, here in Chicagoland, they stay on as the closing attorney. And so some of these banks, they'll pay, like for example, SPS typically pays $3,500. Doesn't matter the purchase price. If it's higher, it would be a higher one. And so they really don't do anything. And so I tell them, hey, that's how you add value. You can add revenue by working with my team. And guess what? My team handles everything from start to finish. So we're collecting the paperwork. We're calling the banks. We're doing the follow-up, all of that. And so I did that for many years. Now I delegate that out to my team. But it's really a win-win because the sellers are avoiding the foreclosure. They may get that relocation. My team's helping another family, and we have added value and revenue to the bankruptcy firm. There's been a handful of attorneys here that have said, thank you, Heather, for telling me about this, because I essentially saved their firm and they've added real estate to it. And so it's great.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's so powerful too, because you're not going in there begging for business. Like, you are becoming an asset. You are becoming a partner, and then bringing a huge value add, and they can see that value add, and that's amazing.
Yeah. So now my attorneys here, I've been working with them for so long. And, back when I founded Blueprint, I was like, look, this is what I want to do. I want to clone myself and agents across the country, but I also want to clone you. And so most of them have helped me build relationships with other attorneys across the country. And so now those attorneys are giving us deals, and then I'm able to help that person get connected with one of my partners inside of my community, and then they're able to navigate through the foreclosure process and avoid. So I'm just taking what I built here in Chicagoland, Josh, and I'm mirroring it all over the country.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. No, I love that. So then, okay, is it still today where like, okay, and again, I apologize for all these questions, but it's been so long. But these also give our audience kind of an idea of what it takes to go out there and work the short sale. So, okay, it used to be, okay, like a short sale listing presentation, at least for me, was vastly different than a traditional listing presentation, because we're talking about their situation, how we can get them out of that, not so much like decluttering the house and how we're going to go out to market. It's just, how do we solve this situation? And, but then it was like, okay, hey, I needed a file. Like I needed, hardship letter. I needed, like we had to, I mean, I can't remember, short sale package, right.
Yeah.
That we'd submit to the banks, so, you get all that detail, the hardship letter, tax return statements, all of that, authorization letter. Have to print. I don't know if you still have to do this, but we'd have to handwrite each loan number for each, on
No, we don't
every.
do that anymore.
Okay. So I was just, what does that process now look today?
Yeah. So, oh man, I should have, if I would have known, I still have all of my files. I keep them. I mean, I remember them being like this thick, Josh. Mostly everything now is done through like e-signatures and stuff. Now for me, I still go and sit with these families and they'll physically sign all of the listing paperwork. And so it is a very different type of listing. We're not really going over a presentation. We're going over the whole entire situation, what's going to happen. Here's a time frame, rentals and all that. But and we'll take a packet too. So we'll give them a packet. But my team they use like this Adobe thing. I don't even do it anymore. But some system inside of Adobe, they still have to do the loan numbers at the bottom of each page. It's still like 100 pages for the packets. All of that hasn't changed, but we're not printing and then rescanning and doing all that. That was crazy back in the day to do all that.
Yeah.
Most still have, faxes, some have emails. So that hasn't changed too much. But over, my 16 years of doing this, we've collected 5 or 6 pages of all the banks and the fax numbers and the emails and the phones. And so that's great, because when my, any partners that come on, they have access to all that and they don't have to call the banks and find all of that information. It's just easy for them. And the packets, you would think that they would make this easy. They don't. I mean, like, for example, Midland Mortgage, they have 4 different packets, depending on if it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, private, VA, or FHA. It's crazy. So that really hasn't changed. You're still doing the loan numbers, but you do not have to physically write them anymore.
Yeah. So you mentioned something interesting earlier of, okay, when our team's following up with, the short sale negotiator that works for the bank or whatnot, you mentioned, being nice.
Mm-hmm.
I would have agents in my office, back in the day when I was doing a lot of these, that they'd be like, well, man, I'm just getting nowhere with this. But then I'd overhear the conversations and they'd be just so rude. So I'm like, you think you're going to get to the top of that file? You think they're going to want to help you? Like, at the end of the day, this is another human being on that line that they're stressed out. They probably got a stack this big that they're having to work through. What are some best practices there? Like, are you checking in weekly? And then the power of developing those relationships and just little things like, hey, being kind. So maybe they kind of put you to the top of the stack.
Yeah. I mean, so dealing with the short sale situations, you're probably never going to get the same person. There are some banks where I have, a relationship with 1 or 2 people, but that's more so like on the REO end, Josh. But, for best practices, we have literally the same system we did today as we did, back in 2007. So we call the banks twice a week at certain times, depending on when that bank opens. And so we get an update. We keep everything in our Google Calendar. There's conversations. We want to keep track of those conversations, because if we ever have to go to court or whatever the case may be, we can pull that, sign it, and, have an affidavit of those conversations. But I always say, like, being kind, ask them about their day. Where are they located? I talk about the weather a lot. I absolutely love the weather. And so just make them feel good. It's just really the right thing to do because you don't know what anyone has been through. And when we're dealing with this type of situations, it's just good. Just be nice, be kind. It's not that hard. You don't need to yell at them. But it's the best way to just call them. Follow up is so key. And so we do that twice a week. And the other thing is we update all parties. And so that's really important. My 3 words with short sales is organization, consistency, and communication. And so if you don't communicate, the buyer's not going to know what's going on. They're going to get leery about the situation. So if you're updating we update twice a week as to where everything's at. And yeah, I train my team to call and be nice to these people. Now it's very difficult to be nice when they're not always nice, but you have to do that. So I always say I'm nicey with the banks because you have to think of the homeowner and you're really trying to make it work for them.
Yep. Yep, love it. So then let's transition and talk about Blueprint Short Sales. So you started this in 2019. Like, what led you to, going down this path?
I always knew growing up that I wanted to help somehow. I never knew what it was. I thought I was going to go and be an attorney. And then, here I am with these short sales. And so I realized very quickly on in my career that one, homeowners are getting a lot of bad advice. They're turning to the internet or they're finding an agent who may not understand the ins and outs of a short sale. So Blueprint Short Sales was founded mainly with the homeowner in mind, but also because I had it on my heart that I really want to provide the best education and support for agents across the country to understand short sales. It is a very complicated transaction. There's a lot of moving parts. I feel like they don't teach that in any course, even if you have the SFR course. Like I'm not certified in anything. I've had people inside of my community that said, oh my gosh, I didn't learn any of this stuff in the SFR. Like I'm teaching people how to release IRS tax liens, value disputes, all of that. And so I wanted to educate and support agents because if I do that, then ultimately it's going to help the homeowner. And so I had it on my heart to do that. I started this. I did all these training videos and these modules and these workbooks. And then the pandemic hit. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner. And so really we've been doing it now for about 2 years.
Yep. So then, inside there, so this is for, those in our industry, real estate professionals that really want to go out there and whether it's turning this into a niche or just, I'm a big believer in you got to have the tools in your toolbox.
Yes.
Like you got to be well-rounded. Our job is to go out there and help our clients buy and sell real estate. Well, the situations and reasons as to why they need or want to buy and sell real estate can differ. So, to be a true professional, it's like, okay, we got to be well-rounded. Well, we can go out there and help them navigate through those situations regardless of what they are. So, even if this isn't a niche that somebody wants to attack and build a multiple 6-figure yearly leg off of, it's still a massive benefit just to have this skill set because it's going to come up at some point. And if you don't know how to do them, it's like, okay, either you're going to get yourself in trouble or your clients in trouble, or you're just going to lose out on that business.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Josh. Whether you just want to get, knowledgeable about the situation, you have buyers that are making offers on short sales. You want to be able to properly explain that to them. And so that's basically what I created. It's a boot camp. And so whether you want to intelligently speak to buyers and sellers about the short sale process, or you're like, oh my gosh, I love Heather Keller. I want to be just like her. And they want to take this niche and really make it their own in their market. It's for that person too. So I wanted to create a place where agents can go and get all of these modules, all of these trainings. And then I also go on to the group and do these live Q&As because I think questions and getting those questions answered are so important. Everyone has, pretty much access to me, but I have a team that monitors the group. So that way, if questions come in, I don't like just commenting on them, Josh. I like to log into my Loom account and actually do a video. I think it helps explain it a lot better. So I think the unique situation with this is I'm still doing short sales. I'm still doing distressed sales. I will never stop because Illinois is #1 for foreclosure rates. They're always high. And these families here still need my help. I'm just very blessed to have found a great team that I can delegate these tasks out to, so I can spend a majority of my time helping these agents and coaching them and supporting them inside a blueprint, because they need help with these families across the country.
Yeah, love it. So if anybody that's watching or listening, if they want to learn more about your training program, your boot camp here, like where do they go to do that?
Yeah, so actually I can send you all of those links. I don't think that I did. I have like a sneak peek video of the boot camp. So all of my groups are inside Facebook. I love the guides. I'm super, super organized. And so it will literally take you through step by step for everything. And so we do have the boot camp. We like you to start there because it's basically an overview of short sales, but I say it's like short sales on steroids. So much information. And so that would give you a general overview of short sales and short sales and distress sales. And then if they want to continue their journey, they can. But that course right there is going to be by far better than any course across the country. But yeah, we have a specific link for that to get all registered and stuff. And it's pretty instant. They just sign in, they get approved into the group, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually did it. And I think I was approved in about 3 minutes. I mean, it was so fast.
That's my other group. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yep.
that come through. I have one group. It's called Things to Know About Becoming a Short Sale Expert. And so inside of that, I do like tips and, Josh is going to be coming on to teach about his perfect storm. And so that's just like my group to say, hey, you want to explore the option of becoming a go-to short sale expert. But my boot camp is the #1 short sale boot camp. And so that's where everyone's in to learn the modules and stuff.
Yep. Awesome. And anybody that's watching and listening, whatever platform that you're on, if you just scroll below, so either the show notes or the description below, we'll make sure to get all those links from Heather and have all those. So if you just we can click on them and get access right away, to those. Okay, so then you talk about your team and automation, because it can be, with the amount of calls and wait times and hold times of sitting there negotiating with the banks and whatnot. Just like, I mean, it's no different than being an individual agent. Eventually it's like, okay, you got to help start delegating some of this stuff out. But you've been able to automate this. When I say automation, I mean a lot of automation they talked about, whether it be through systems like your drip messages through Perfect Storm, or automation through building out the right team. But can you give us kind of an idea of what the team looks like? So those that maybe hey, I want to become Heather. I want to go out there and have this niche where I have no competition. I make more money. I think you talked about this, but I forgot to bring it up as a talking point of you make an average like 40% more commissions than
yes.
You don't have competition. You're helping families in these situations, but you're able to have a life and make good money. And so if somebody wants to go build that, obviously they need the knowledge for this niche for short sales. But then give us an idea of like how you've been able to automate this through your team and so forth to buy, to have a life.
Yeah. So that's such a great question. And it's taken me many years. I'm pretty strict when it comes to like what I was delegating and automating. And then I had this aha moment, Josh. I don't exactly remember when it was, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I love to automate and delegate. You have to if you want to scale and grow your business. And so on my short sale distress business, I have a transaction coordinator that's been working for me since 2016. And, I really believe if you want a great team, you got to take care of that team. You got to pay them good. And so she comes on, she makes all of the phone calls. She does all of the listings. She does all of the paperwork. She responds to emails. So essentially what I am doing now is I still take the calls to talk to these sellers and stuff. And I'm going to meet with them. Now, I do have someone that can go meet with them, but I still love that part. I still love going and talking to them and explaining the process and all that. But Bonnie is not licensed. And so she can do everything that she can do without being licensed. And then for me, I wanted a buyer's agent. So I do have a buyer's agent because I don't take on dual agency. I typically don't. So when a buyer calls from one of our deals, then she'll just pass that off to the buyer's agent. And so my team is fairly small. I have like a runner, I have a photo lady if we do decide to get photos on the property. Otherwise, Bonnie pretty much handles everything. And she's been such a big part of my team. And I believe she's been such a big part of my team because for so many years I did it on my own, Josh. And I feel like I trained myself. I knew my systems in and out. So I was able to properly train Bonnie to do it the way that I wanted it to be done. And so that's why I feel like my team and how we operate has been so successful. Now, on the blueprint side, I have a lot of virtual people. I have a design coordinator that's virtual. I have a team that used to work for Google that run ads and stuff for me. And then I don't know if anyone uses Monday.com, but I love Monday.com because I'm very task driven. And so my support coordinator and my partner coordinator inside of Blueprint goes in each day and they know what tasks they have to do. And so when I started Blueprint a couple of years ago, I was doing all of these tasks myself. Again, same as the real estate business. And then I slowly started to delegate those out. So some of those things are, social media, that's like a full-time job. So I don't want to do that anymore. So they do certain posts. They'll go in, Josh, and approve you. I did approve you into my group today because I was like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
And so just, a lot of these little tasks that are small, but it takes up a lot of time, a lot of work. And so I take a look at my business and I say, okay, can that be automated? If it can't be automated, can I delegate it? And so once I learned that, it made things a lot easier. And now that's just what I try to do now. So
Yeah.
actually one of the trainings coming up inside of my community is like, what happens in the day of the life of Heather Keller? And can I help you automate and delegate this? And so we're taking a look at everyone else's business. So kind of fun.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of people in our industry that would love to, like you mentioned that, hey, like I've got this window while my kids are in school.
Mm-hmm.
Then outside of that, maybe the once in a while Saturday meeting in the morning if it's necessary. But outside of that, it's like, okay, you got all that time in the evening with your kids and to have dinner as a family and to not, go to those events and, because it's so easy to let this industry where it no longer becomes a business or a job, it's a lifestyle. And then you end up sacrificing so many elements of your personal life.
It takes over your life. And if you're running your own business, it shouldn't be like that. So you just have to, there was so many years that I would work 24/7. And honestly, like I said, I don't remember when my aha moment was, but I'm like, I think it was like my kids are getting older. My oldest is 12 and my youngest is going to be 9. And they're at the age now where they're doing, theater and cross country and all this stuff. And I wanted to be there. And so like last night, they had their spring concert. I was there. I did not work. I didn't take any phone calls. And so you just have to set those boundaries. And I think once you do that, I just kind of let that go and was like, look, I have all these systems set up. And that's when I feel like my business started to really flourish. Non-negotiables for me, I work out 4 days a week. So that's like a must. And then, like after I'm done with this, I'll run to the grocery store for dinner tonight and then I go pick them up and that's it. And I can do that because I have a team that I've delegated those tasks out to. I mean, like, for example, I can't go in and submit these short sale packets all the time anymore. No, I had to delegate that part out. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, then there you get to the point where, okay, they can actually do it better and a better job and stay on top of it. And,
yes.
Because we're, I don't know if I'm in a short sale listing presentation for, 2 hours, getting the whole package, having those conversations, if it takes that, okay, well, that's 2 hours I'm unavailable. Where if a short sale, if the bank's trying to get a hold of me to have a question for an approval, maybe I just botched that because I was tied up for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, they have access to all that. The great thing about like my system, Josh, is I really train these agents to do as much due diligence up front. So that way they know when they go to the property that those sellers are going to sign that paperwork and they can get it listed in the next day or two. But the listing appointment is designed to be there for like an hour. And so that does free up some time as well.
Yeah. See, I'm really bad personally at okay, when people are going through telling me their story of what led them here and letting them talk and talk and, like, I mean, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, like, that was one thing that I probably should have managed better when I was doing a lot of short sales, because I would have long listing presentations, because I would sit there and listen to their whole life story.
I mean, some people have more questions and it will last longer, but I try to get all of that done up front.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will do a Zoom before I go, but a lot of times it's phone calls. Hey, this is the question. This is the game plan. That way I'm here doing all that, and I'm trying to make the most of my time when I'm there.
Yep. 100%. All right, so one last question for you. I know we're going long on time here, but okay. So if Heather today could go back to Heather, when you first started doing, let's just say, just started in this industry, and you're sitting on a park bench. So yourself today and your younger version of yourself, knowing everything you know now, if you could give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you feel would have just, fast forwarded this success trajectory that you're on, what would those pieces of advice look like?
People ask me that all the time. I would say for me, I grew up in a very small town. I moved to this big city. I, wasn't good at talking to people and all that. And so my biggest advice for myself back when I was 22 years old and moved to the big city of Chicago was to jump outside of my comfort zone a lot sooner, and really surround myself with the right people. Yeah, my husband really helped me get to where I'm at today, but I would have loved to have about, 100 of him. And so I think a lot of people today, they don't want to go and talk to attorneys or jump outside their comfort zone, but you cannot grow. And that is something I learned. It took me a very long time inside of that little bubble. You really have to go outside of that. So I would have told myself to do that a lot sooner. Now, moving from a small town to Chicago, Josh, was definitely outside of my comfort zone, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so, starting doing the mortgages, starting the real estate, I would have said, hey, jump outside of your comfort zone. Because looking back, I do feel like we were very patient and we knew what the future held, and we just continued to encourage each other, and we were consistent. And he was not organized, I was. And so I think that's what made a good team for us.
Yeah, no, awesome. I lied. I got one last question. So inside your coaching, like, you're not just teaching us how to go out there and process the short sales. Are you also like showing us, like you mentioned, the letter and your drip messages, and are you also helping provide like and coaching on with that stuff too, so then we can have success of obtaining the short sales?
Yeah, so our mission inside of Blueprint is to help 100,000 families avoid foreclosure. And I always tell people I cannot do that alone. I'm only licensed here in the state of Illinois. So I need to properly educate and support these agents. So everything that I've used, everything that I have done is inside of that community. So what do I do daily? What do I do weekly? What do I do monthly? What do I do yearly? Every single marketing piece, they also have access to this book as if they wrote it. And so that's the cool thing. So all of my information gets changed to theirs. What is my system to call the banks? I've done trainings on literally every part of the short sale process. What else? There's so much information I have, task lists and, what to say on the phones. Basically what Heather Keller has done here, you have access to it inside of this community. And that was really important to me to be able to provide all of that, because if not, we're never going to get to that mission. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a licensed, essentially like a licensing program, but you're doing it through, again, essentially you're giving everybody, hey, here's my business. Right now you just plug, play and roll with it.
So I love quotes. So one of the quotes inside of the group is like, look, we provide all the tools and the resources to be the Heather Keller in your area and take that blueprint and run with it. But what you do with it is totally up to you. So the people that are being consistent, they are having a lot of success. And whenever someone closes a deal, we want to interview them and tell about the story. I just had a partner close a crazy meth lab deal in Colorado. And so we probably don't have time for all those stories. That's like for another day, Josh. But yeah, to provide as much support and education so that way we can get to that mission. Like I said, I'm confident in the fact that I don't think there's anything else out there like this because it's so hands-on. In fact, one of the partners inside the community was just calling me. She has this crazy short sale going on. And so after this, I'll give her a call. And so everyone has access to me or the group. And it's just a really, really great community to be a part of.
Yeah, sounds awesome. And again, anybody that's watching and listening, we're going to have all those links below so you can check that out. So if this is a niche that you want to explore, that you want to go down, which I highly recommend that you do, and you're looking to make sure that you do it right, not get yourself in trouble, not get your clients in trouble, but also how to do it and scale it in a profitable way. Again, all those links will be below. So make sure you check those out. And Heather, thank you so much for taking time out of busy day to be here. This has been absolutely awesome.
Thank you, Josh, for spending your Friday afternoon with me. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate your support. Truly appreciate you being here. Keep up the amazing work, and we will see you next time. Peace.